Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Fame Flame. I'm your host, the one and only Donald J. Trump, the man who turned the White House into a gold-plated reality show. And let me tell you, we're going to make this show great again. My successor and your current commander-in-chief, Sleepy Joe Biden. But don't worry, folks, we've filled him up with enough coffee to keep a college student awake during finals week. He's here and he's ready to roast me, Donald Trump. This is going to be huge, I guarantee it.
Well, folks, it's a real treat to be here today. You know, usually when I'm this close to a mic, I'm talking policy or explaining my latest gaffe, but today we're roasting, and our guest of honor is none other than Donald Trump. Now, before we start, Donald, let me apologize in advance, not for the roasting, but for the likelihood that I'll forget my own punchlines. Donald, you remind me of those energy drinks, you know, the ones that promise high energy and great results, but really just make you jittery and lead to a crash. Well, at least those can get through a peaceful transition. Okay, enough about Donald. Let's talk about me for a moment, or as I like to call it, giving my PR team a heart attack. You know, I've been in politics longer than most of my supporters have been alive. I've seen 14 presidents in my lifetime. I remember when the biggest scandal in the White House was someone stealing a block of cheese, not hacking an election. Have you heard about this recent scandal? Cocaine found in the White House. Can you believe it? In the most heavily surveilled building in the world, someone managed to smuggle in some Colombian marching powder, and nobody knows who it was. You know, they've got cameras in every corner, sniffer dogs patrolling the halls, Secret Service agents scrutinizing every visitor. And yet they still couldn't find out who was planning to turn the Oval Office into the Snowval office. I mean, come on, folks. We've got better security than Fort Knox, and yet we couldn't catch one guy with a Scarface fantasy. Now, I've heard some rumors floating around. Maybe I forgot that it was mine. Well, I'll have you know, the only white powder I'm interested in is the powdered sugar on my ice cream sundae. At my age, I get more of a rush from a strong cup of coffee than anything else. And trust me, if I was into that sort of thing, would I really be forgetting where I left my car keys? I'd probably have them attached to a chain around my neck like some 1970s disco king. So let's clear that up. No, folks, the only lines I'm interested in are the lines of my speech. And trust me, those are potent enough. Sometimes I walk into a room and forget why I went in there. But don't worry, it's not dementia. It's just that I've been in so many damn rooms. Can you blame me? I've been in more congressional meetings than most people have been to family reunions. And, oh boy, the speeches I've given. You know, they say talk is cheap, but in my case, it's like a never-ending yard sale. Every word from my mouth is like a little piece of clutter I've been trying to get rid of since the Nixon administration. I mean, my speeches are so long, filibusters call them dad. I just can't help it. I've got more to say than a parrot with a thesaurus. And let's face it, you know you're in for a long one when I pull out that classic, look, folks, opener. That's the Biden equivalent of once upon a time, and you better have some popcorn handy because it's going to be a lengthy fairy tale. But hey, you know what they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I got a few tricks up my sleeve, but they're all just different versions of forgetting my Twitter password. I mean, seriously, who can remember all those special characters? I'm from an era when the most special character you'd see was a dollar sign. You know, I've been accused of being boring. Can you believe that? I've been in the room with world leaders. I've made decisions that affected millions of people. I've met the Queen of England. And still people say I'm as exciting as watching paint dry. Well, I'll tell you what, if paint drying had as many twists and turns as my political career, it'd be the #1 show on Netflix. I'm not saying I'm old, but I've been in politics so long, even the dinosaurs are saying, damn, Joe, when are you going to retire? And let's not forget my habit of misspeaking. My gaffes are so frequent, Merriam-Webster is considering including Bidenism in their next dictionary update. It's right there between baffling and brain freeze, which coincidentally is what happens every time I start a sentence and don't know where it's going to end. But hey, at least when I talk, folks don't need to check a fact checker. They just need to check if I remembered to finish my sentence. Now, talking about healthcare reform, I've been trying to get this right since before the Beatles broke up. You'd think after all this time I'd have it figured out, but let me tell you, it's like trying to explain Snapchat to your grandparents. It just doesn't compute. And boy, my love for ice cream. You'd think I was running for the president of Baskin-Robbins, not the United States. Seriously, I've had more ice cream than most kids have had hot meals. I know more about the different kinds of vanilla than a sommelier knows about wine, but you know what? There's nothing more American than loving ice cream, is there? Except maybe forgetting your own policies. Yep, I've done that too. There's so much going on in this old noggin of mine, I sometimes get my wires crossed. Who knew running a country could be so complicated, huh? It's not like we have any manuals for this stuff. I mean, sure, we've got the Constitution, but that thing is like an IKEA instruction manual. There's a lot of fancy words and diagrams, but at the end of the day, you're just hoping you don't have any screws left over. Now, let me tell you, I've got a better chance of remembering where I put my car keys than remembering all the ways I've been honored by this job. I've shaken more hands than a Las Vegas blackjack dealer and kissed more babies than, well, let's just say there's a reason my lips are always chapped. And can we talk about all the ceremonies I've attended? If I had a nickel for every time I've had to sit through some speech about fiscal responsibility or agricultural subsidies, well, I'd have enough money to pay off the national debt and still have enough left for a double scoop of my favorite ice cream. You know, sometimes I look in the mirror and I think, Joe, how the heck did you end up here? I mean, I've got more hair plugs than a field of corn and a smile that's more polished than the Resolute desk. If that doesn't scream presidential material, I don't know what does. And the traveling, don't get me started on the traveling. I've been to more countries than most people can name. I've logged more air miles than a migrating bird. And let me tell you, the view from Air Force One never gets old, but man, do I miss my Amtrak rides. You know, nothing like a good old train journey to remind you of simpler times. Let's face it, folks, I might not be the flashiest president or the most eloquent. I'm not exactly setting the world on fire with my charisma, but, you know, I've always believed it's not about the show, it's about the work. And as long as there's work to be done, I'll be there. Even if I have to ask my wife where there is every once in a while. All jokes aside, Donald, it's been an honor roasting you tonight. And before I forget, let me just say, your ties are longer than my public speaking track record. And trust me, that's long.
And there you have it, folks. Thank you to our guest, Joe Biden. He tried his best. Very nice, very nice. We like good sports. Even if his jokes are slower than the mail-in voting process, we appreciate the effort. If you enjoyed this episode, do hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Tune in next time, folks. We've got more roasts that are going to be bigger, better, and hotter than ever before. It's going to be tremendous. You won't believe it. Until then, stay fiery, my friends.